Hello, learners. Welcome to our virtual classroom, and let's begin our discussion with exogenic processes. Now, before we go through with our lesson for today, let me share with you a brief idea of what is exogenic processes. When we say exogenic processes, these include geological phenomena and processes that originate externally to the Earth's surface. Take note of the word externally, meaning this happens outside of the Earth's surface. With that being said, I have here the different exogenic processes. We have weathering, mass wasting, erosion, and transportation. The question now, what are the relationships of these processes? Now, these processes are responsible for denudation of Earth's surface. Now, what is denudation? It involves the processes that cause the wearing away of the Earth's surface by moving water, by ice, by wind, and by waves. Now, leading to a reduction in elevation and in relief of landforms and of landscapes. As you can see on the left part of this presentation, we have these processes: weathering, mass wasting, erosion, and etc. Now, they are common in terms of the process which is wearing away of the Earth's surface. Again, they are responsible for denudation or wearing away of the Earth's surface. Now, to have better understanding on this, I will present now the first process, which is weathering. Weathering is disintegration and decomposition of rocks by the various agents present in the atmosphere, such as the temperature changes, moisture, and or moist. Now, when we say weathering, to sum it up, when we say weathering, it has something to do with the breaking down of rocks or alteration of rocks. However, there is no transportation involved. Okay? Though there is disintegration, there is a breaking down of rocks, but there is no transportation involved. Meaning, transportation, transferring of the rocks from one place to another. Okay? Again, there is no transportation, but there is disintegration and breaking down of rocks. What are the agents involved? We have temperature changes, it can be also climate changes, moisture or moist. Okay? Now, to better explain this one, we have the three types of weathering. First, physical or mechanical weathering. Second one, chemical weathering. And the third one, we have biological weathering. When I say physical weathering, disintegration and decay of rocks happens via weather elements. Okay? We have high temperature, extreme colds, and freeze-thaw cycles. As you can see on the presentation, for this example, we have the disintegrated rock or the disintegration of rocks via, it can be high temperatures. Okay? Now, when we say physical, there is no change in chemical composition of rocks or no alteration of the chemical aspect. Only the physical. Hence, the name is physical weathering. The second one, we have the chemical weathering. It decomposes rocks through a chemical change in its minerals. This time, there is now changes or there is now alteration of the chemical aspect or the chemical components. Under this type, we have two types of chemical weathering. First, we have oxidation, and the second one, we have carbonation and solution. When we say oxidation, the oxygen reacts with rock. Okay? Or when oxygen combines with another substance and creates compound also known as oxides. Now, when rocks, particularly those with iron in them, are exposed to air and water, the iron undergoes oxidation, which eventually can weaken the rocks and make them crumble. As a result, the rocks become reddish coloration just like rust. Okay, there is now a changes of the color and at the same time the chemical aspect. The second one, we have carbonation and solution. What happens here is that carbon dioxide dissolved in water and then reacts with carbonate rocks in order to create a soluble product, which is calcium bicarbonate. I'll give you an example, which is limestone. Now, limestone is made of calcium carbonate. Again, limestone is made up of calcium carbonate. Now, when carbonic acid comes into contact with limestone and then passes through joints and bedding planes, it reacts with the rock to form calcium bicarbonate. Now, the calcium bicarbonate, since it is soluble and it is carried away in solution, it gradually weathered the limestone itself. Okay, it affects now, or it weathered now, the limestone. Okay, so that's the example: carbonation and solution. Next type, we have biological weathering. When you say biological weathering, it involves the disintegration of rock and mineral due to the chemical and or physical agents of an organism. Now, the types of organism that can cause weathering range from bacteria to plants to animals. Okay? Again, plants and animals contribute to weathering. One of the examples, we have roots, which physically break or wedge rock, which is very familiar to us, and I believe you have seen this in real setting. Okay? Next, we have the lichens or the lichens, in which algae and fungi living as a single unit and then remove minerals and weaken rock through releasing acids. Okay? Next, we have the burrowing animals, which can increase weathering. Examples of burrowing animals, we have like moles and rabbits, which dig holes and then expose new rocks to the effects of weathering, in the manner of the holes allow water and other weathering agents to reach the rock layer that had been covered by the soil, and eventually it will contribute to weathering. Okay, we have biological weathering. Okay, let's proceed to the second exogenic process. We have erosion, which involved in removal and transport of material from the surface of the earth, or it has something to do with the action of surface processes such as water flow or wind that remove soil, rock, or dissolved material from one location on the earth's crust and then transport it away to another location. Unlike weathering, though there is a disintegration by different agent, there is no transportation involved. Meanwhile, in erosion, there is a disintegration of soil, rock, and or minerals. It transfer from one location on the earth's crust and then eventually it transfer it away to another location. Okay? Now, to have better understanding on this, I'll present to you, or I'll show you examples, okay, or types of erosion. Number one, we have wind erosion. Second one is sheet erosion. Now, when we say wind erosion, it is a natural process that moves soil from one location to another by wind power. So the main agent for this is we have wind power. Okay? The second one, we have the sheet erosion, which is the uniform removal of soil in thin layers, and it occurs when soil particles are carried evenly over the soil surface by rainwater. As you can see there, this is the result of this kind of erosion, sheet erosion. The third one, we have the real erosion. It has something to do with the removal of soil by concentrated water flow, and it occurs when the water forms small channels in the soil as it flows off-site. Lastly, we have gully erosion, and it is the removal of soil along drainage lines by surface water runoff. This time, gully erosion, there is a big cut and it makes deep channels in it. Gully erosion. And that ends our first part of our discussion. Thank you so much for listening.